Hi everyone, it's Frank Rotz, and I'm doing my first video for 2018, and it's been about a month since I put one out. Obviously I try to do one every week and a half or so, but with the holidays and everything, this is where we're at. One thing I was doing way back in September, I was doing something that was called Rod Week, and I figured that there was something I really didn't cover that was important, and that is actually rod guides themselves. Now, I've gone over some brands of rods before, but talking about guides specifically, I can probably do it in about 5 minutes, so I'll start with it. And some of the stuff I did mention in the rod guide videos themselves, but I'll just start with your economical stainless steel guide. And this is actually off a Berkeley Lightning rod that is no longer in production as of this year. So there's not going to be these guides on Berkeley Lightning rods anymore. But you'll see these stainless steel guides on a lot of rods that are lower dollar. And from all my contacts, 99.8% positive feedback on it. I've had some that aren't. They're not the biggest guide. They're not the smallest guide. They'll work if you find a blank that you like and you see that guide. Don't hesitate to give one a whirl. So you've got stainless steel, and that's your least expensive. Now, in terms of your next grade quality size up, you would have like your standard Fuji type of a guide like this. Now, you may be able to notice something that's a key variable. Is the guide on the left is the stainless, and that's the Fuji. This actually has a much thicker guide because of that insert there, and that's done for smooth casting. This used to be the creme de la creme on a rod guide, and they're really not anymore. But for a lot of rod builders, they're still the standard. Unfortunately, with a lot of store brand rods, they're not putting, or even a lot of other rods. There's so many on the market, they're not using the old standard Fujis, which could result in some breakage. But all rod guides have gotten better, especially store brand ones. So, but that's pretty much your classic Fuji right there. So your next step up would be something called Elkanite, and Fuji Elkanite guides happen to be on my favorite laser tournament lose rod, my Tournament Pro. My favorite rod, my 7 medium light Magnum taper, and just kind of allow you to see that is a little thinner guide, and it looks a little different because it's fluorocarbon. It sits out further to increase fluorocarbon line casting. I'm just being very careful with this rod because it's out of production and I love it. But it's going to be Fuji Elkanite is like a harder type of material, and it casts farther, and it's a harder material, so you get less of that heat buildup when you hook a big fish. So there's just more of a chance that you're going to land that big fish that you get on there. So we went through stainless steel, and then we went through kind of your mid-grade, which would be like your standard Fuji, which I consider almost a mid-grade now. Before it wouldn't be. Maybe 10 years ago it would be more of a top. And then you've got your Elkanite, Fuji Elkanite. And they do have Elkanite inserts on, obviously, guides that aren't fluorocarbon. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they do. Now, in terms of size, you've got pretty much, your standard guide is probably going to be right about that size on a spinning. It's going to be about your standard guide set. This is a short bass rod, kind of unique, but you can see that's pretty much your standard set right there of guides on a rod. So that's from your running guide to the tip. And we're going to talk about 2 other guides. We're going to talk about mini, and we're going to talk about semi-micro, or micro and semi-micro. So on your micro guide rod, what you're actually going to have is, obviously these are casting rods, so they look a lot different than the spinning, but you're going to have a real small series of guides throughout. So you can see it starts getting really small about the 3rd guide down. Then you're really, really tiny in here. Now the rumor was that these cast farther than regular guides. And overall, the consensus is that that's not true. The reason being is they claim to shoot in a straight line, and they do put line through in a straight sense on here. Line does propel very well through these guides straight, but that doesn't equate to more distance. There's so many more factors involved in the guides regarding wind, what kind of lure, and if you're trying to place it on a baitcaster or spinning and so forth. But your big advantage to micros is they make a rod a lot lighter. They have a much smaller guide foot here. So they have a real true rod taper. If you take a really good rod blank and put a thick guide on it, it kind of restricts the action a bit. And it's a real true feel on a micro guide. I recommend them personally for underhand casting, or if you do more casting on the short range. If you like to bass fish cover in a bass boat, and you're not making a lot of power casts, you want good power, you want good accuracy, but you like a longer rod, like this Lew's Laser, by all means go with a micro, but they don't equate to more casting distance. And then after micro, you've got your semi-micro guide. So your semi-micro guide, and this is spinning, is going to be, you could see, even so much smaller. So that's going to be your semi-micro. That's going to be your stainless steel. So you could see it's a lot smaller, and as you work your way down the line, there's your second guide from the running, then your third, and so on. The progression is not quite as pronounced as your micro, but they still get pretty small down here. So me personally, for versatility, yes, this underhand casts better just like the micro, but I don't know, I like I think my fluorocarbon casts mono better than anything, but that would be up to you to decide. Obviously there's lots of brands of guides. Alps is a rod I didn't grab that I really like. It's a really thin stainless steel, hard version without an insert. I could talk about other things about guides, but just to kind of give you a synopsis of guides, they're not as big of an issue, I think, as they were in years past, where people would wonder about the quality of a guide. Even your least expensive rod, like that you would get at Bass Pro Shops or Cabela's, is going to be probably going to last you a lifetime of fishing if you're the average fisherman. So your main thing is going to be application on them, and your Fujis still have the reputation for that if you want to spend a few more dollars. But again, be willing to experiment, like how my fluorocarbon guides turned out to be one of my favorites. I kind of bought it as a sail rod. We learn a lot of things by accident when we fish. So basically you've got your standard, your micro, and your semi-micro, and you don't see the semi-micro and the micro as much as you did in the past, but they're still going to play a role in rod manufacture. So it feels good to finally do a video after the start of the new year, and it's good to be back. Really looking forward in 2018 to doing some different things than I have in the past. Just to give you a brief rundown, I will be doing maybe a real review, maybe a little bit more on rod materials. What else? Fine-tuning, stitching more, that little slow finesse technique that I've been running, fine-tuning it more for better placement. Maybe running some more spinner baits or chatter baits and different crankbaits, so some more faster fishing and some more well-placed, slower finesse stitching, amongst some other things that I have lined up. But I hope that this rod guide video is informative. Leave any questions if you have any, and if you could, please give me a thumbs up. I haven't seen too many on the channel. Even I've been viewing and have forgotten to do this on some of my videos. Some of the videos I've watched from subscribers and other people, so I know it's hard to remember to do. But if you could please subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, give me a thumbs up. That would be great. Any questions, just ask and I'll try to respond. I usually try to be pretty good about it. But I hope that maybe that dispels some of the myths and or questions that anybody has had about rod guides. So looking forward to doing more videos soon, and take care everyone. Thanks.